Recently, I've been playing a bunch of indie games with the whole purpose of getting out of bounds. There are so many games nowadays, so I ended up picking 5 games that were free on Steam to see if I could break them in some way. This is breaking 5 games you've never heard of before. The first game that I found on Steam was The Hideaway. This is the only game on this list that actually cost anything, and currently it sits at $2 USD on Steam. It's also the most beautiful game on this list as well. The sunsets give off a very Firewatch vibe, and actually at night you can see a bunch of shooting stars in the sky. Moving on from the visuals, there's an invisible wall on all of the levels, keeping you from going out of bounds. It didn't seem like there was a way to glitch through the barrier, but I found out that the blueprints for builds you place down have collision, which is how we will break this game. There are currently 4 different maps in this game, so I decided to break all 4 maps. There is currently Silverlake Forest, Sefton Island, Sahara Desert, and Red Canyon. To start, we'll be looking at the most interesting map out of bounds, and that would have to be Silverlake Forest. To get out of bounds on this map, I went into the corner of the barrier and started just jumping and placing the blueprint of a table under me, which ended up taking about 10 minutes to reach the top, where I was finally able to hop out of bounds. Upon making it out of bounds, you are met with only mountains, but that's until you venture over them. But before doing that, if you turn around, you can see just how tall the tower to get out of bounds really is, and all I can say is it's massive. Over the mountains is almost nothing but the void, but there is actually an island out of bounds completely disconnected from the game world. The only way to access it is to attempt to build over, which is exactly what I did. I started building in a stair-like fashion and quickly noticed not only how long this is going to take, but that the blueprints I was placing or about to place while looking into the void is almost completely impossible to see. Almost like building and walking on an invisible staircase, making this one of the most intense out-of-bounds moments I've come across in a game. It was completely impossible to build during the night as well as storms due to visibility, but it was a very cinematic experience. After finally building a staircase for an hour and a half, I was above the island from what I could tell and took a leap of faith. I ended up landing on the island, and when I turned around, I saw just how massive this out-of-bounds staircase I made actually was. The island is quite small and had nothing really interesting on it, leaving me wondering why this would be left out of bounds in the first place. Before we finish this map, I wanted to show you exactly what happens if you fall into the void. First thing I noticed is the screen starts to shake slightly while increasing in intensity the longer you fall. I also realized if you look up, you can actually see your character's face, which is the only instance we are given the ability to do so. The longer you stare at the character's face, the more it feels creepy and uncanny. You'll notice the character starts to deform the longer you fall into the seemingly endless void, leaving you with a sinking feeling. That was Silverlake Forest. Next up is the Sahara Desert. We will come back to Sefton Island a little later as it has some issues. To start, the Sahara Desert has a lot of old structures and rolling desert dunes with no life in sight. It gives off a very open and alone vibe to the whole map. The Sahara Desert has for sure one of the most vast out-of-bounds areas in the whole game, but while the area is vast, there really isn't anything too interesting left out of bounds on this map other than the floating terrain that you can find. That pretty much covers the Sahara Desert map. Next, let's move on to the Red Canyon map. The Red Canyon map is really similar to the Sahara Desert map visually, with just a lot less room to move around. Something fairly interesting about this map is that there doesn't seem to be any barriers stopping you from leaving the level. Maybe the developers thought you wouldn't try to explore and go out of bounds on this map or something of that sort. It is also really lackluster out of bounds on this map, as there isn't anything other than the floating terrain. That covers the Red Canyon map. Finally, let's move on to the worst map in this entire game, Sefton Island. The reason this is the worst map is because of the intense amounts of lag that you can feel from just standing still. So as a result, I'll keep this segment short as not to make y'all suffer. The map is really beautiful and also surrounded by a barrier in its entirety. The great thing about this map is without breaking it, I can see out of bounds until there's nothing to explore. I may not have broke this map, but it for sure broke my PC. Moving on from the Hideaway, we will be taking a look at my favorite game on this list, the Emulator. The Emulator is a game about going over to your girlfriend's house on the night before Halloween as you were invited to the family dinner with her parents. You arrive at her house and find that the front door is unlocked and you can't seem to find anyone in any of the rooms that you have available to you. Eventually, you have to go to the computer room to find her brother, who was taken out by this so-called emulator. The emulator emulates itself as objects around the house to try and take you out next. This is where the game actually starts, and you are tasked with trying to find one of the multiple endings. In this game, I found many glitches and skips, and was able to narrow down a route for a speedrun, in which I was actually able to beat the game sub 1 minute. It would start as soon as I was able to move, and I would go inside. I would then go upstairs and take a right at the hallway. Once I've taken a right, I'll take another right and head directly for the key in the drawer next to the bed, which just so happens to be the key to the computer room, which is necessary for this run. Next, you would head to the computer room to pick up the screwdriver and head back upstairs. At this point in the run, it's all based upon luck. You have to hope you don't run into the emulator on your way to the next area, which is the room that is straight ahead of you when you get upstairs. Once in this room, I would walk over to the edge of the bed and try to wedge myself next to the bed, but also behind the painting on the wall as well. Once that's done, I'm able to walk into the next room where I do the same thing but with the laptop on the table. After doing all of that, I'm outside of the house and need to run to the edge of the map where I see this trash bag looking object. This is the indicator of where you need to fall off the map and into the ending section. This area that you fall into is the entire reason that you need the screwdriver. After unscrewing the screws in the vent, I'll be able to run up the stairs and end the game. A cutscene would start, resulting in finishing the run. This is my sub 1 minute run on the emulator. That was my 57-second speedrun of the emulator, and it's currently the fastest ending I could achieve in this game. There are quite a few different endings to this game that I could try to achieve in a speedrun, so let me know if you want to see something like that in the comment section down below. The next game is called Star of the Show. This one is about searching the dark web and a police station for evidence on a crime that someone committed. This game is actually quite hard and will be the shortest segment of this video, but there were actually some interesting things I was able to find out of bounds. The way you get out of bounds is to go along the fence in front of the car and you'll be able to walk past the barrier. You have to be careful where you walk as there isn't a lot of solid ground out of bounds. If you follow the fence all the way around the house, you will be met with an empty street and a single lamppost. There is a gap in the fence that ends up taking you back towards the house, but if you follow the fence around the house, you can see something very interesting. You'll notice another gap in the fence that leads directly to your bedroom window, but it's different. It's almost like the window we are looking through has a picture of the room over it. It feels so weird looking into the window, it's almost like looking at a fake version of what really should be present. Something that adds to that is if you go back inside and look out your window, all that you can see is black. You can't even see the gap that you walked through in the fence. That was really all I could find out of bounds on this game, but it was quite interesting. Moving on to the next game, which is known as Camp Laughter. In this game, I also managed to achieve a speedrun as well. This game has you walking through a camp and doing objectives while avoiding enemies that chase after you. This game was the easiest to break on this list as you just had to find a way between the trees. One of the most interesting things I was able to find out of bounds was a massive lake that has a solid glider on top of it, so I guess it's more of a massive puddle. It ended up taking a while to be able to find the ending out of bounds as there are very tall mountains surrounding the entire map. But after locating a route, I knew I wanted to attempt a speedrun on this game. This is my sub 3 minute and 30 second speedrun of Camp Laughter. That was my 3-minute and 26-second speedrun of Camp Laughter. This was the fastest route that I could find in the entire game. The final game on this list is called Blown Away. This one is a platformer that intends to lead you down specific areas in each level to get gems at the end of the level and go through the portal. The interesting thing is that you can create a bubble that surrounds your character and makes them float forward, which can actually be used to your advantage. In a lot of different locations, you can actually float above the cliff that uses a barrier in this game, allowing you to completely skip levels and see interesting angles of the course they intended you to follow. The most interesting thing in this game, Out of Bounds, is an incredibly small but also massive city that has no collision and seems to be lost out of bounds. If you want to see me speedrun Blown Away as well, please let me know in the comments section down below. This was my attempt at breaking 5 different games, gaining access out of bounds, as well as even speedrunning a few of them. Well anyway, that's gonna be it for me. I do hope y'all did enjoy this video. Let me know if you do want to see more by subscribing to the channel. But anyway, make sure you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.